Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not to Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows or their adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Kaiju number 8, season 2, episode 3. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're basically picking up right where the last episode left off, with Kikuru showing up to back up Kafka. And this episode gives us some insight. A lot of insight that I guess in retrospect I should have seen a little clearer. But first and foremost, we get to learn more about Kikuru's mom and how much of a boss she was. Apparently she was like the captain of the 2nd Division. I think they called her Valkyrie. I don't know if that was like in reference to like her weapon or... Well, I think it's just in particular like her whole get-up. Because we saw her weapon, because her weapon's number 4, which I think is interesting, that Kikuru's would be number 3. Whether it ended up being 3 or 5, it doesn't matter, but I just think it's really interesting that she has a number like right beside her mom's. I just think that's interesting. But like, because she wore like a very specific, like her armor was like white, and I don't know if that was like a byproduct of like maybe Kaiju number 4's ability isn't just in the weapon, but maybe it's in the armor. Like it transfers and makes armor too. Because, you know, we've only seen like the weapon, well... Because her armor could be something else entirely. Like it seemed like very unique to her. Because we've never seen anyone else, like even a captain level person like Mina, having like a special uniform like that. So that might have been something unique to her Kaiju number 4 weapon, or maybe that could be unique to something else. Because we learned in this episode that Narumi's eyes, the reason why they look the way they do when he's kind of going all out, is because those are parts of a kaiju, specifically from number 1. I don't remember they said those specifically were number 1's eyes, or where they just took like pieces of number 1 and implanted them in his eyes. But once again, they talked about this last season, the whole conversation about enhancing some of the defense force with the kaiju. Like that has been something that has been tested, and there has been success. Obviously not to the same extent as like Kafka being a full-blown turning into Kaiju number 8. Like that scaling is like vast, you know. So, but you know, that's why I'm wondering, like, could her armor have been from like a different Kaiju, or maybe it was made from the same Kaiju? Maybe it kind of worked in unison with her weapon. But either way, we got to spend a little bit more time, that's a tiny bit of time, with learning more about Kikuru's mom, how she was obviously very lovely and she cared for her daughter and was playing with her. You see that, you know, it's Kikuru probably took a lot after her mom personality wise and stuff like that, but obviously it's like her mom was her biggest hero. She loved her, and also like knowing like, oh my god, people recognize how awesome my mom is. But then there's also the reality, she saw like her mom's arm is bandaged, and it's like, oh, like, did you get hurt? Just the Kaiju this time is a little tougher. But Kikuru in that moment was like, don't worry, mom, I'll join the defense force and I'll protect you. So it isn't just like her dad sent her down this path. She wanted to go down this path because she wanted to be able to fight alongside of her mom and protect her. And then, you know, her mom's like, good, because if you do that, I will always protect you too. And you see, even though he isn't fully, like, you get to see a completely softer side of him, but you do get to see glimpses of that softer side of Isao, because losing her, you know, it changed all of them. And this is what I was talking about previously, of like, there was insight there that I never really pieced together, because our introduction to Isao was at episode 3 or 4 of season 1, where we learned why Kikuro pushes herself, wants to be the best so much, is because of her dad. But, you know, obviously the real center of that is twofold. One, Kikuro pushes herself so much because she wants her father's acknowledgement, but I'm sure that was like after he had already lost his wife. And so he pushes Kikuro to be better, because he's like, I want you to be the best, because I don't want to lose you. I already lost your mom. I can't stand the thought of losing you. So you need to be the best. You need to be better. Especially because, as we know, the more he uses his weapon, the shorter it's making his lifespan. So it's probably a thing of, he knows he won't be around forever, and so he wants to be able to know that Kikuru will be the best, and that she'll never falter or fall in front of a kaiju, and that even if he's not around, she can take care of herself. So it's you know, that's what influences that. And so it is pressure from her dad, but she also takes the pressure on herself because she wants to be the best so that she never is in that situation again, because she blames herself. It's like, if I was older, if I was stronger, maybe I could have been there, because she blames herself. She's like, I'm a liar. I promised I would protect my mom, but I didn't. I failed. And even at her mom's funeral, she sees her father stone face, because for him it's like the position he's in, he can't get emotional right now because he's got to bury that, because he's got a daughter to look after, but he's also got an organization to look after, the defense force. So it's like, I don't have time for tears. I need to use this as motivation to get stronger, to prepare us so that no one else has to go through this, we don't lose more people. Like, at that point, the landscape was already changing when it came to the Kaiju, because I think it was Kaiju number 6 that took her out. There was like the swarm disaster, and it's like, it would have been so much worse if it wasn't for her, but like, they lost a very powerful person that day when she died, and so many people around the world mourned her death. So it's just kind of this moment of, all right, we feel our sadness here, and then immediately we pick ourselves up and we go. Because even Kikuro, seeing that look on her father's face, wipes away her tears. It's like, don't worry, I'm going to become stronger. And, we see her applying that today, where it's like, I'm going to make sure no one, because this isn't even just about revenge. Like, probably Kikuro before would have just been all about revenge, about like, getting her get back against Kaiju number 9 from last season, like when it was a very like one-sided brawl. But obviously she gives back just as much as she kind of got last season, but more so than anything, her main motivation here is to get stronger, to protect someone. And your cheesy friendship, Nakama type of way of, my friends are my power. Once again, I'm a sucker for that stuff. Once again, very shonen coded in that regard. But yeah, like that being the motivation for her strength is different from just wanting to be the best and it being purely driven by revenge. Whereas now it's like, no, it's about protecting everyone that you care about. And obviously she pulls out all the stops against Kaiju number 9, because obviously she's faster and then she's stronger than what she was before. And I really love that move where it's like, it's bubbling up its stomach to kind of off balance her, but like Kafka ends up kicking it and he breaks his leg in the process. But it gives Kikuro the chance where she like wraps like the hook part of the axe around it, and she kind of swirls around it and quickly, like in one fell swoop, like sliced and diced the thing into multiple pieces. I was like, that was such a smooth and slick technique. And this was the opportunity for Kafka to try and transform. Because up until this point, they're all kind of thinking like, oh, it's got to be Kaiju number 9, which I was like, oh, is that what the twist is going to be? I was like pretty certain it was psychological. And it ends up being, because it's not till Kafka transforms and then like inside of his mind, he sees the Kaiju thing that makes him Kaiju number 8, and it swallows him, and he proceeds to see him kill all his friends and allies, and that scares him, and he finally realized that's what this has all been about. It's not Kaiju number 9, it's me, it's my own fear, the fear that I'm gonna transform, lose control, and kill all my comrades. Because I brought it up last episode too, like this is the first time Kafka is transformed post his fight with Asao, so that's a big contributing factor to this whole situation. So obviously him and Kikuru are getting still banged up from the fight, because he's still a pretty tough opponent. It's like they still need Kaiju number 8 for this situation. Obviously Narumi handles things on his side pretty easily. He still had to kind of go full throttle. We kind of get to see the full scale of his weapon. It's basically a bayonet, because it can be used like a lance, but like slash sword, but also used like a gun. So he's able to pretty keep up nicely with Kaiju number 9 until we learn that Kaiju number 9 at least adapts way more than any other of the Kaijus they faced so far. It's really interesting considering like we've seen that since season 1, where this is the one that will constantly bring back Kaijus and make them stronger. I can't remember if 10 did that as well last season. I think 10. No, I don't think it did. I think that's just a 9 thing, because it seems to modify itself. Like it almost feels like almost like Frankenstein-esque scientist, where like it experiments with kaijus in itself. So it I guess that's just maybe its main thing, its modification, considering how it modifies its body. I mean, to be fair, all the other kaijus have it too, because even even Kafka, when he's in his kaiju form, like his body morphs to like turn into basically jet. So makes sense, but it modifies itself to a larger extent than the others. So Narumi has to contend with this thing adapting so much. In fact, it's actually gotten used to fighting him, and it adjusted so it knows its attack patterns, and so it forces Narumi's hand, so he ends up really tapping into his eyes. Very like Sharingan coded to some extent, really. Once again, all the eye techniques, but he's able to like basically he's reading like looking because he's basically able to see like the nervous system of a kaiju, and he's able to kind of read like the synapses before the body can really like the mind is thinking on what it's going to do. He can kind of read it. They kind of call it foresight, future sight rather, and it kind of makes me think of like obviously like Chainsaw Man, with the future demon. So it kind of gives me that kind of insight, and I'm curious like how far. Well, it's also interesting timing too because like obviously spoilers. Like recently, I was watching something recently without giving it away that has a character essentially having a foresight ability like that too. So, but either way, he immediately gets right to business. I love because initially, people are worried because they're like, "Oh my God, he got hit by all these attacks," but he's like, "You don't got to worry about it, Narumi. I'm the best. I'm great," and stuff like that. And then he proceeds to cut loose and literally cut number 9 into pieces. Like he knows exactly where its core is, and it doesn't just stop with the core. He like slices the entire body to pieces and wins. And before he's able to make his way over there to Kafka and Kikuro hears Kafka muttering to himself about why he's afraid of this, but Kikuru is like, "Don't underestimate me or any of our friends, like Hoshina, Amina, Ichikawa, or anyone else from the division. Don't worry about us. Like, have more faith in us, and first and foremost, have more faith in yourself. You're stronger than you think you are." And he's like, in that moment, it's like, right, I should have faith in my friends. And even, that's the thing he needs. Like, I'm not have to worry about killing Kikuro. She's so much stronger than I am. So the fact is, that won't even be a concern. I should be fearing for my life essentially. And that's the push he needed to kind of push aside his fear, and then transforms finally. He's like, right, I don't have 100% faith in myself, but he's like, but I do have faith in you guys. So he leads the small fry to her, and he takes on number 9. Obviously, this fight was pretty one-sided last season, but he's obviously stronger and he's adapted more. He's ready to kill number 8 this time, but Kafka, like, just in one fell swoop, ends up ripping out a core, but he's like, "Oh, this wasn't your core, it was the ants." But he's like, regardless, crushes it immediately, and then proceeds to try and get some height. It kind of reminds me of the outro, like how he's like running up the side of the buildings and boosting himself into the sky. And he basically jettisons himself down for a power punch, and it clashes with 9, and 9 immediately gets demolished. And it's like this doesn't make any sense. Like, it's way stronger. He's different than he was before, because ironically the fight with Asao helped him grow. It's like it took the kaiju overcoming his body for him to realize that I haven't been using nearly all of Kaiju number 8's powers, and it took being nearly controlled by the Kaiju for me to realize that. So now he has a better understanding of his body, and so he's able to release more of its power. So just in very One Punch Man fashion, and in typical Kaiju number 8 fashion, demolishes it with a single punch, leaves the body like massive hole in the middle of it, and the rest of the body just squished down, and bits flying in the sky, and just everyone watching being able to fully witness, like, yo, this is what Kaiju number 8 can do. And the fact is that it's just like in one fell swoop, he made quick work of something that Narumi had to pretty much push himself to do. And even Kikuro, as strong as she is, she's still a rookie, but it's like how much the gap between the defense force and the kaijus are, like, power scale wise, for it to be like resolved like that. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where things go from here. What's next? I guess kind of after such a successful mission, kind of some team bonding again or whatever. Maybe we'll catch up a little bit about what the rest of Division 3 is up to post this. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what's next after this is resolved. But also, is Kaiju number 9 actually dead? Kafka was like, "I'm going to beat you," but I'm like, this thing made multiples of itself. Who's to say the real body was anywhere? Like, this thing might have left a fraction of itself behind somewhere so that it can regrow, and so maybe the main body's orchestrating like a puppeteer behind the scenes, so it's, just building from this experience. And or was this the end of Kaiju number 9? That's unclear. We'll have to wait to see on that front. But I'm very, very interested to see where the next episode ends up taking us going forward with all of this. Oh yeah, and there's also the Hoshino show. I almost forgot about that at the end. And the guest this episode was Kikuru, and it was basically someone writing in talking about how perfect she is, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm this," and the conversation comes up about how many different languages she knows. So she kind of makes it clear, like, I know so many languages, all that I've accomplished, graduating from such a. She's like, I'm so pretty, I'm so strong, I'm this and that. It's like, oh, I'm pretty much perfect, aren't I? And then Hoshina's like, yeah, if you fix that personality of you'd really be perfect. And just kind of that's the end of it. But it's like, yeah, but also, it's kind of funny because that is kind of still a little bit of her personality, but we haven't really seen that because everyone's on their grind this season. So she hasn't been as like conceited as she has been in the past, because it just shows like how dedicated they are to their path. So she hasn't really shown that side of herself. She's just dedicated to getting stronger rather than thinking she was the best and thinking she's hot shit. So it's kind of funny because that's more probably, but once again, it hasn't really presented itself. We're still early in the season, so that side of her personality could still pop up, but that feels more like season 1 Kikuru versus who she is now. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.